Welcome to the REI Foundation podcast, where we cover all the steps and strategies to make your real estate dreams a reality. Now your hosts, Jason and Peely.
Well, hello again, and welcome to another edition of the Real Estate Investing Foundation podcast. It is Multifamily Monday, but you are in for a super treat today, an absolute delight, because we welcome back Nathan Tabor. Nathan, welcome. How are you?
Good, Jason. Thanks for having me back on your show again. It's quite a pleasure, and I'm very humbled that you'd let me come back on your show again.
Oh, well, we're super excited. So if you missed it, episode 142, Nathan dove into his entire life story, all the ins and outs, how he grew his real estate empire over the last 15 to 20 years, and just a little bit more about his apartment flipping experience. 26 properties flipped in 9 years, grossed over 52 million in sales, raised over 1 million from investors, and has consulted on deals worth over $200 million. So a lot has happened, and we're super excited. And today, being Multifamily Monday, we're going to transition and talk more about multifamily and how to really just underwrite those deals that maybe have a little bit more hair on it. But before we do, Nathan, it's been about 11 months since we've spoke. What have you been up to?
Oh man, it's been an incredible last 11 months. I think last time I was on, I just had neck surgery. So I've been dealing with that, been released from the doctor, which is good. Still got, some muscle issues here and there. Families doing really well. And then from a, business perspective, have really, dug into, helping others understand, where do you want to go? What do you want to do? What's your niche? Been doing a lot of podcasts and a lot of, conventions and conferences. And then still, working on that work-life balance, because it doesn't matter how much money you have or how many properties you have. If you're not balanced or you're not, being able to enjoy the fruits of your labor, why labor?
I love that. And we spoke about that a lot on the last episode, which is just hugely important for everyone out there. I heard something the other day. It said, you got to think about your happiness, right? You could have $1 million and 2 kids, or a kid with leukemia, or have no money and perfectly happy because your kids are just happy as can be. So it's a whole different perspective that money and working hard is not the only angle here. You got to have that balance to your life. So,
and in that, with anything, I've really come down to, it's a choice, right? Mm-hmm. It's a choice. Do you want to do this or do you not? We were talking family before we started out. You have a choice to spend time with your wife and your kids, or you have a choice not to. Nobody's going to make you except yourself. So, I always encourage people, if you want something different, if you're trying to change, then, like the Nike ad, just do it.
Yeah. I love that. Right. And that's it. So
that's it.
Always say that they can't, but meaning they can is usually just a stop that maybe they haven't thought, well, how do I?
It means they won't. Yeah. When they say they can't, it means they won't.
That's that. I love it. I love it. Good. Well, let's dive in here, because super excited for Mondays. Mondays, all about multifamily. You have a ton of experience. And we were talking offline about just a lot of opportunities out there are overheated. There's a lot of things that are on the market that, maybe the meat have already been taken off the bone. Seller expectations are just way out of the box and they're not making sense. But there's still plenty of opportunity out there. However, sometimes that opportunity comes in the form of distress, and using our distress to our advantage to be able to find where the value add can still be, but not pay over market for it and not really just be into it for too much. So we want to dive into just how you look at a deal that may have a lot of hair on it. What are the key components you're looking for? What is primarily your route to do this analysis just to get yourself to the finish line? And what do you stay away from?
Yeah. So, really the number one question here that people always want to know is, well, how do I find these deals? Mm-hmm. How do I even get to them? Because normally by the time things get to LoopNet or CoStar or MLS, someone's added that value to it, right?
Correct.
So in finding these, and people always, I get people come in, they say, oh, that's great advice, but that's really simplistic. But it is relationships. Finding the people who know about these deals that are really distressed. Most of the properties I buy have been on the market maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago, but they've become such a problem that people don't even feel like, who would want this? Or people are, ready to give up. So, finding those relationships and having that ability to close. But the one thing I really try to stay away from that can be, quite expensive or headaches is environmental issues. Asbestos, if there's been a cleaning facility like a Cleaner World or something 30 years ago across from the property, anything like that can cause a environmental concern, which is why I always encourage people to do a phase one.
Perfect. I'm just going to ask, so how do I get ahead of it so I know exactly if I do have an environmental issue? Yeah,
phase one is basically a desktop where they run, I don't know how, what all they're looking at, what records, but to see, has there ever been a dump nearby? Has there been a gas station that had leaky tanks that got cited by the EPA, or something that could throw a red flag up and say, hey, you need to look into this more. Because those environmental issues can be very expensive to correct.
Is there ever a point it would make sense to look at opportunities that have environmental issues? Because a lot of people will shy away from them.
There's a point, if you can buy it right. I've bought properties that have had environmental issues, but I, had to extend the due diligence time period. I had to get, estimates in, contractors in, DENR, the Department of Environmental Resources in, and made sure that I knew, hey, here's this issue. What is it going to take to fix it? How much is it going to cost? How long is it going to take to do it? And then plan accordingly.
Love it.
So yes, you can, but that's where you really need to get somebody in that understands that process to make sure you don't get caught.
So what are some things you're looking for from a distress side that you say, okay, this is a home run, I'm going to go after it?
Anything that is a cosmetic issue. Windows, the roof looks like a patch quilt that your grandma used to make. It's 7 different colors. Parking lots or alligatoring where they've cracked and maybe they've even started to break up. Just from a visual standpoint outside, the place almost looks like it needs to be pushed over. There's major weeds, 3-foot weeds growing in front of windows, no landscaping, handrails broken or down. Things like that you see is a sign of, most likely, and I would say probably 100% of the time, that the apartment complex is out of money. So they're not maintaining the property. That's a good, if you're driving, or if you're trying to find something, get in the car and drive around and go look for those complexes. That's what I do.
So you're actually driving around. That's your way of finding sellers, is going around looking for these. Just like if you were to drive for dollars for single family houses, you're doing the same thing for.
Doing the same thing. Go find that. What I really look for is a Class C area. So the houses are 50, 60, 70 years old, but they're well maintained. They're $80,000 to $150,000. They're cute little places. And sometime 30, 40, 50 years ago, an apartment complex was built on the edge of that residential. And then the residential grew and consumed that complex. So there's houses in front and side and behind because the city, the municipality the area grew. So now all of a sudden you have this Class C minus, maybe Class D, because of deferred maintenance and occupancy issues right in the middle of a nice, steady area.
I love that. Do you have any suggestions? I'm in New Jersey, right? So the opportunities are a bit difficult based on everything, right? So legislation, so tax perspective, price per unit. So if I'm here and I'm saying, that's a great idea, but I really don't feel like I can do that here. I'd love to do that out of state. Do you have any ideas for how someone can do this if they're doing this from out of state?
Yeah. So, it's really simplistic in the sense, which I think is why a lot of people overlook it. Write down that scenario. I'm looking for 40 unit complexes, or I've got a $2 million budget or $1 million, whatever your facts are there. I'm looking for it in a Class C area and describe out that area. Write down as much as you can. Here's my ability to close even. Put all that together in an email and start contacting brokers in that area. What a lot of people do, and this is why they never find the properties, they call a broker or they email a broker, and what do they say to them? Hey, let me know when you find a good deal. And that's all they say.
Yep.
Well, you've got 3 or 4 classes of investors already in front of you, people who have defined their niche and shown that they have the ability to close. So who does a broker, if a broker finds that pocket listing or that great deal, who are they contacting first?
Person who knows exactly what they want, that fits in their criteria, and people they have relationships with right there.
Yeah, their short list.
Yep.
So if you want to get on that short list, write down, hey, this is what I'm looking for. This is the area I'm looking to purchase it. This is exactly the type. And, if you can, find out how to get a commitment letter from your bank or get your investor, put a bank statement together, do that upfront work that shows that broker that you're not just kicking tires. Because if you're serious about doing this, then be serious about putting the upfront effort into it to get it done. This is not something that you can just say, hey, I want to, find some distressed properties and contact 10 brokers, and then you never hear back and you say, well, what's wrong with the system? Yep. I'm going to say this in the nicest way I can, that what's wrong with the system is you.
Love it.
And I don't, I don't mean that in a rude way. I don't mean that in a sarcastic way. And I mean that in a very serious way. If you're going to be serious about multifamily, then get serious about your packet that you're sending to brokers or to investors to find these properties and take them down. That, defining out your business plan, defining out your investor packet, and then really knowing your niche. What are you looking for? A 4-unit complex, a 10-unit, a 40-unit, a 60-unit? And what that really comes down to is how much money can you raise, or how much credit can you get from a lender or a bank, or hard money. You need to not kind of know, well, you do need to know all of that at some point. So when you're talking to a broker, they can help you identify properties that match up to your criteria.
I love that. I love that. And so is there any confidence tricks if I've never done a deal before and I want to do this? I want to talk with brokers. I've done my research. I've done my homework. Now I'm ready to make that call, but I don't know how to not sound like a newbie to the broker.
Yeah. My advice on that is, I'll put it this way. Have you ever asked someone a question, whether you're face-to-face or on the phone, and you immediately know by either the look on their face or the tone of their voice that they have no idea what they're talking about, except they're really laying it on thick? Have you seen that before?
I have. Yep.
What does that make you think about that person?
Honestly, that they're trying hard, but they really don't know what the heck they're doing.
Yeah. So I'm not going to waste time with them.
Yep.
In my opinion, I think the best approach is when you're saying to a broker, hey, I've not done a deal before, but I know what I'm looking for. I know, what my niche is. I know, about a cap rate. I know, here I've got these investors. I've got this lined up, but I'm really just trying to understand your market, and I'm trying to understand how to find this type of property. Can you help me?
I love that. So you dive right in. You say, hey guys, listen, I'm not going to beat around the bush. I haven't done a deal before, but I'm doing the work to be able to do a deal. And for that's what I'll bring to you. I'm not going to lie and say that I'm experienced. There's going to be things I don't know, but I'm going to lean on you for that. And for this, here's the work I've done. I'm going to help you along the way. And if you can just help me figure out exactly what I need from these deals that I have in target, then we can have a good relationship together.
Yeah. Here's the key to that is by showing them your written stuff.
Okay.
To really show them. And there's something about when you talk to someone or you've got something, you're trying to work on something, they say, hey, I want to do this. And this is my plan. And you say, hey, can you send that to me in an email or in a written form? They say, oh, I haven't done that yet.
Gotcha.
It immediately takes, from a 10 to like a 1.
That's right.
Because if you're not disciplined enough, if you're not motivated enough or determined enough to take what you have in your mind and put it on paper, statistically, you'll never get the deal done. Because what does a bank require before they give you financing?
Honestly, experience, personal financial statement, track record, who you're going to work with on your team, your guarantor, your loan sponsor,
Yeah. Your
money you have.
business plan, your LLC, they want all this stuff that's in writing.
Correct.
They won't expend, and you might not know how to do all of that, but there's people out there who do. There's programs that do, Google it, YouTube it. If you can't, pay a coach or a consultant or mentor to help you or buy a course, there's enough free stuff out there that you can put it all together, but that takes time. It takes diligence. And that's if you want to reach those brokers, if you want to reach, sellers, if you want to help get people to help you, you got to show that you're serious.
Yeah, there's almost no reason for you today to say, I just don't know how to do this, and I'm not sure how to find out, because you can find anything and everything in between YouTube, Bigger Pockets, any other courses and sites out there. Someone's doing it in a very proficient way, and you can basically just watch their deals. And your point about just labeling specifically what you want, when I'm having an introduction with a broker, I'll get on the phone with them, talk to them about specifically what we want, go over what we're looking for, and how we can both basically help each other. But then I'm going to follow up in an email just to make it clear, because you can state all these things. They could be driving, they could be, jogging, who knows what they're doing. But on that point, get it to an email, get in front of them so they have it there. So, and it even helps, every couple of weeks, you don't have to badger them on a phone call. You just follow up and just say, I'm just following up here with my criteria, what I'm looking for. Just want to see if anything's come into your arena that may be a fit. And we've had a lot of things come down a pipeline from that, for sure.
And so you're just building that relationship. You're getting in front of them. You're literally branding yourself. Hey, keep me in mind if you find this. Yep. This also applies to people who have been in the business and they've done 50 deals or 500. The same principles apply. You have to tell people specifically, you have to communicate with them what you're doing, what you're looking for, and how you're going to do it.
Yeah.
I still have my contacts, and I'm constantly reaching out to them saying, hey, if this comes across your desk, please keep me out of sight, out of mind.
Yep.
The brokers work on commission. They make no money unless something closes. So for them to make money, a deal has to close. Who are they going to go with? They're going to go with the person who they believe is the most serious about it and has the ability to close.
That's good. And of them, who's in front of them, of, not out of sight, not out of mind, because ideally, you may have 5 people that can close and 2 are always on top of them and 3 they never hear from. So those 2 that are always in front of them are the ones that are going to get the call first, no matter what level you're at.
Yeah. And if you have 2 investors who have the same portfolio, have the same abilities, have the same financials, and one of them is nice and cordial and respectful, and the other one is always like, why haven't you found me something? Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you working for me? Which one is the broker going to choose most likely?
Yeah. Easy choice. Whoever causes you less stress in your life is going to be the direction you're going to go. So that's a great point, right?
Yeah.
So let's transition a little bit about the deals actually themselves. So you find a deal, right? And we're coming on, we just closed a deal with 0 financials. How do you treat those deals? Because there can be a lot of value found in very distressed deals, whether it be on the property side or the management side, but they take a lot of work, and sometimes you have to build the deal back in from everything that the seller hasn't done to be able to get it across to the finish line.
Yeah.
Any suggestions?
Yeah. So very carefully.
Yeah.
That is, if you want to make silly, stupid money in real estate, the higher the risk, the higher the reward. The higher the risk, the higher the loss, right? But if you want to really get in and have some serious equity, some serious cash flow out of a property, it is buying a distressed property.
Yeah.
But you have to be conservative in your numbers, and you have to back into it. Because if you don't have the financials, and most of the time, even if you do get the financials, most of them aren't accurate. I've bought deals before where people said, oh, we're collecting $23,000 a month. And that's what they filed on their tax returns, and closed on it. And they were collecting $5,000 a month. The rest of the people were just living there, and the person had, fudged on their rent roll and fudged on their taxes so they could get more out of the property.
Gotcha.
So then I switched to, at least on the financial side, of requiring bank statements. to look at what they were actually depositing into their account. But then on the property side, this is the way I figure my deals. If I'm going in, and I'll use an example, a 66 unit that I bought a couple years ago, lady's husband had passed away. She'd had it on and off the market for 5 years. There were no financials. So, I called the power company, Duke Energy, to see how many meters, how many units had power to them.
That's great.
Pretty good indicator to see who's there. Well, there's about 80% of the units had power onto them. But I figured, if 80% were there and paying, they wouldn't be in a financial, problem because they didn't owe anything on the property. There was no debt on it.
Gotcha.
Then I started working back, what are the costs associated with property taxes, insurance, dumpster, how many dumpsters? They only had one dumpster, but a property that size needed 3. So I went in and started building the expense report because they didn't have any.
Sure.
What's maintenance going to cost? What's management's going to cost? And literally just, built that. And then what, the renovation's going to cost. Well, then I had to assume, what percentage is paying. And I went way low, 20% of the people who were there, only 20% were paying. So then I ran my numbers of, well, how much am I going to need a month to cover that shortfall? And how many months am I going to need it? Because that's money that's going to have to be accounted for, raised, gotten a loan or an investor, because that's hard money that you're putting in that you're not getting back out.
Yeah.
So then you start, running down through, what's the cap rate in the area? What are complexes selling for? What's the cost going to be to renovate? What's your holding cost? How long are you going to have to hold it before it breaks even? What are, any fees, any services, time that you're going to have to put into? So you literally have to go in and build everything backwards. So then what I say to people, okay, say the complex for easy math here is $1 million complex upon completion. So once it has 2 years of seasons financials and it's at the 8% cap rate, it's going to be worth $1 million. Well, how much is it going to cost to renovate? How much is it going to cost to have carrying cost? How much, all of that. So then you have to say, let's say it's $300,000 to do that. Well, now you got a complex that's worth $700,000. What's the cost of broker fees when you buy it? Are you having to pay, or is the seller paying? Let's assume it's $50,000. So, now you're at a $650,000 complex. So you've backed into your renovations, you've backed into your holding costs, you've backed into any, back taxes, anything that might be owed. So let's say we're at $600,000. Well, how much equity do you want in the deal? And that's a number you're going to have to determine. Do you want 50,000, 100,000, 200,000? Let's say 100,000. So now you're at the most you can pay for that complex is $500,000. If you want to get to that $1 million number. Now here's the warning in that. And this is the one that you have to be really careful of. If you build $100,000 profit into your deal and you've missed your renovation budget, or you've missed your carrying cost, where is that coming from?
Your profit.
Coming from your profit.
Yep.
So if you don't do your numbers right, I always tell people in renovation, if you think it's $100,000 or $500,000, add 30%. If you think your carrying costs are going to be, 6 months, double it. Build yourself a cushion in there, because what I've seen this happen time and time again. It happened to me once. We look at this deal, we look at the number sheet and we go, wow, there's a lot of money to be made there. And we forget to be really diligent in our numbers. And then something comes along that we've missed. There's, rotten flooring in the bathroom. There's electrical issues. There's aluminum wiring, and we didn't really check on that. Things like that can quickly not only eat up all your profit, but make you go try to, find more money to actually complete the deal.
So how do you safeguard yourself? You said add on 30%, but in terms of just the items that you need to be checking out there, do you have any suggestions to say, like, people out there, you have two parts, right? Someone may just say, oh, this is a huge opportunity that I can find all these. And the other person is scared, clueless, because they don't want to be stuck carrying the bill because they don't know what to do. So I'm scared, clueless. I don't want to take another step because I don't know how I'm not going to miss something. How do I not miss something?
Yeah. So you got to, one of two things, become educated on that process. Find their free resources, find a course. And I know I have a course called How to Find, Finance, Fix, and Flip Apartments. Yep. But find something like that that's either free or some course, a due diligence guide, how to do these deals, and dig in. This other option is to hire someone to do it for you or to help you do it, a coach, a mentor, someone that can come in alongside you to help you do this. Because if you just if you've never done a deal, or if you've only done one or two and you go in and try to do it, you'll make the mistakes that I made. I always laugh at people, before we started, I was like, do you know who owns fire hydrants? And everybody I've ever asked, which is what I thought, the city or the town or the municipality, some government entity, right? Do you know that fire hydrants can be owned by the property owner? Which means if they're owned by the property owner, who's financially responsible for them?
The property owner.
The property owner. Well, it's $5,000 to $8,000 to replace a fire hydrant. Plus, if you have any piping from the street, can be more. So there's a lot of things that, and I don't say this to scare people, but I say it to make sure they understand. It's not just about the roof and the windows in the parking lot. It's about things that you can't see, pipes underneath the building, electrical issues, fire hydrants, and things that you really need to make sure you have a checklist. Hey, I'm going to check everything that applies. Is the property zoned right? I've bought a deal before where I was told by 3 different professionals that it was grandfathered in, only to close and find out that the grandfathering had been broken 10 years earlier when they split a piece of property off. One 5-minute phone call, Jason, would have saved me $150,000. You know what that call was? To the zoning department. Hey, here's the PIN number. Here's the address. Can you give me a letter on your letterhead and sign saying that this property is zoned for this use?
Yep. I love that. It actually just saved us on a deal before. We were told it was a buildable lot. We called to the zoning department to figure out it was a non-conforming lot. It would have incurred variances and everything else if we wanted to go forward and use the lot. Great area, but the work and timeline and just the extra holding costs, carrying costs, and all the development costs would have just well exceeded the worth and time of the project.
Right. See, in our minds, what happens right there is that's not, sexy. That's not, Instagrammable. That's not social media type stuff where you take a picture. So a lot of times people are like, well, that's not worth doing. But that's really the nuts and bolts of this system. This is not about how can you make $1 million. This is about how can you not lose $1 million.
Great point.
And if you'll take that mindset of how am I not going to lose money is by checking off everything that you need to do. And when you can start doing that, then you make the money.
I love that. All right. Because ideally, you're right. It's not the big flashy things that's what everybody puts up, but ideally these are the things that sink deals. And with everybody out there showing, it just looks like, oh, you just jump in, you buy an apartment building and it's all, it's all gravy. People are just sending you rent every month and everybody's happy. Super. That's wonderful. However, all the steps in the chain to get you there, that's where the money's made. That's where you can find all the advantage of the property. That's where you can find everything else. It's a cliche saying that people say, but it's true. You don't make money when you sell the property. You make money when you buy the property. Mm-hmm. And that is really in a deal, class A might be a little different, but if you're in that B minus, C plus, C minus, that is really true. It's, I've bought properties before and I've had some great successes, but I've had some epic failures of things that I just overlook. I had people run cameras down sewer lines and be like, oh, everything's great, and close on the property. And 2 hours after closing, people calling in, it was a 48 unit complex, 24 down and 24 up. And, people calling, oh, there's raw sewage in my toilet, in my bathtub. And I was like, what's going on here? I had that checked. So you know what I do now to check on issues like that? You can hire a plumber if you want. And that little camera might not see anything.
So I was like, how can I figure out a way to know this information? Because I'd go to tenants and say, hey, is there any issues here? Oh, no, there's no issues. And then after I close, that tenant would call and say, oh, I have an issue. Well, why didn't you tell me? And they're like, oh, well, the landlord told me they would evict me if I told you of the problems.
Wow.
So I go and pull 2 years worth of housing complaints.
Love it.
And I sit down, and sometimes they'll give them to you for free. Sometimes you have to pay for them. But I mean, if you're getting ready to buy $1 million complex and they want to charge you $50 for the copying of these, that's $50 well spent. You can take you a highlighter. What's that?
Where do you get them?
From it depends on what they call them. They're normally like called business, community and business development, or housing authority, some name like that. So if you just call the municipality or the town or Google, like, how do you file a housing complaint, you'll find the entity in your location. And what you will find in that information is, it's a gold mine. You can see if there's electrical issues in the complex. You can see if there's a plumbing issue. If you look at 2 years worth and, raw sewage in bathtub, raw sewage in toilet, electricity on half of my side of my apartment doesn't work. I mean, roof is leaking, you can find all kinds of valuable information that the owner's not going to tell you. The manager's not going to tell you. If you're not standing there when it happens, you might not know it. But see, here's the issue with most people, and that takes time. That, it's not, and it's not something that, again, like saying, it's not something you're going to put on Instagram or, but that's where you make your money. It's really where you avoid losing your money.
Well, this has been enlightening, and I guarantee someone listening today is going to send you a thank you card, because you probably just saved them tens of thousands of dollars in, multiple different ways, whether it just be the deferred maintenance side or just the zoning side. There's so many things you can do to check the boxes here very simply just by putting in the work. And especially if you're raising money from others, it's your designation and your need, and your have to is you need to do this because you're now responsible for bringing on other funds of other people to be able to make sure that you're offering the best investment you can. And sure, can things get missed? Yeah, of course. I mean, it's a place where a big amount of people are living. Things can get missed. It can happen, but do everything you can to be ahead of it, just so you know what you're buying.
And here's the honest truth about this. I mean, we've talked about this, but we've only really scratched the surface of all the things you need to do. You do these types of deals. There's, a laundry list full of things that you need to do. Yeah. And here's what I tell people. It's not the big things that get you an apartment, because you can see those. You can see if the roof needs to be replaced. Mm-hmm. You can see if the windows need to be replaced. It's the little things. Is the flooring underneath the toilet rotten? Yeah. Is the cabinets, there's all kinds of little things that as you do this, you learn them, and you can either learn them before or learn them after. But one way or the other, you're going to have to learn them. And if you can learn them before, you can avoid a ton of misery and headaches and loss of money.
Yeah, it's a couple things that come to mind, insurance claims, talking to the police department, flood zones, just all those little points right there that you may just miss over and then realize you take on a property and you have a really difficult time getting insurance because there was some catastrophic event 2, 3, 4 years ago that targeted down, and they only gave you 1 year of loss runs.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Nathan, this has been incredible. Always enlightening. Really appreciate your time. Listeners want to hear more about you, your program. Where do they find you?
They can go to Nathan Tabor, and that's TAB as in boy, OR.com. And there's a tab there that says real estate. I have a free ebook they can download. It's called the How to Find, Finance, Fix, and Flip Apartments. No strings attached on any credit card or any of that, but it's just free. It's a good, solid guide to really know how to do things and what to look for. If you're looking for that program that, hey, if I download this book, are you going to make me a millionaire? Don't download it. If you're looking for, materials that really talk about how things are actually done, then that's something you need to download.
and how not to lose $1 million.
And how not to lose $1 million.
Also another important topic that you can definitely get from it. Well, Nathan, this is incredible. I always love talking with you because I learn a ton. The listeners have learned a ton. Definitely super helpful. Look forward to having you back for the next run here. Absolutely.
Appreciate you. Thanks for all that you do. And hey, enjoy that wife and those little kids, because it won't be long before they're, I got a 14-year-old daughter. It won't be long before they're big kids.
Every day, man. Blessed every day.
Right.
So, Nathan, thanks so much. This is Jason with State Investing Foundation Podcast. Super grateful to have Nathan Tabor on the podcast. Happy Monday. Go out there, do some damage. Listen to what Nathan said. It's going to save you a ton of money and a ton of headaches down the road. Happy Monday. Bye now.
Thanks for tuning into the REI Foundation Podcast. Check back next time for more awesome tips and strategies to launch your new you in real estate.